Hi, folks. Thanks for logging on. Lee Diffie along with NBC Sports, Nate Ryan, and our driver/commentator, James Hinchcliffe, with the continuation of some really good news, guys, because last week, obviously, the overwhelming and positive news was about Jimmy Johnson, 7-time Cup Series champ, coming to the NTT IndyCar Series next year. The fact that the doubleheader at Mid-Ohio happened. Here we breeze into a new week, more good news. And Nate, I want to start with you because you've known that this has been bubbling for quite some time. There is an IndyCar race coming to the streets of downtown Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah, some really good news for the IndyCar Series, Diff. And as you mentioned, we're hearing that early preliminary reports say the schedule will be around August for this race in Nashville through the streets of downtown. And Nashville has become just such a hotbed through the professional sports landscape. We certainly saw that with NASCAR last year. NASCAR has announced they're going back to Nashville Super Speedway, which is outside the city limits, but they also had their award ceremony there last year. Huge reception, huge response. That town obviously known for its hospitality, and it really embraces racing. So I think it's great for the NTT IndyCar Series to get in on that as well and to be a part of this burgeoning Nashville scene. We're hearing that Justin Timberlake is also talking about bringing a Major League Baseball team to Nashville. So a lot of good things happening there. It's good to see IndyCar getting involved and having a street race there next August as well. And after a season in which, unfortunately, IndyCar has lost so many street races, Detroit, Long Beach, Toronto, it's great that we're going to see a new street race next year in Nashville, in addition to hopefully all of those street races also coming back.
And Hinch, just to remind you, just in case you'd forgotten, 3 of your most memorable victories in your glittering career have come on street courses. So what does it mean to you that there's a new street course coming to the series?
It's great, Diff. I mean, if you look historically at how street courses have performed for the series as events, you take the Indy 500 off the table as the longest running race. The next longest running race is Long Beach. The next one after that is Toronto. St. Pete's catching up. Obviously, Detroit was off the schedule for a while, but it's back on. When you bring the race to the people and to the city, it is always a recipe for success. And, as Nate was saying, this city knows how to throw a party. They know how to throw a big event. I know a lot of the drivers loved racing in Nashville Speedway, and there's been a lot of talk about wanting to go back there. Obviously, Firestone's headquarters are there, so it's an important part, of the racing background and the racing community. So as far as the drivers are concerned, we're very excited about A, another street course, but B, especially one in Nashville.
And look, it really resonates with the IndyCar fans and the viewers and listeners when we mention on our broadcasts about the 2-time and defending series champion Joseph Newgarden being from Hendersonville or / Nashville, Tennessee. That really resonates with the IndyCar fans down there. Nate, how important a piece is it in the puzzle of IndyCar? Because when Roger Penske and Mark Miles and Jay Fry, everybody gets together and they say, okay, which markets are represented around the country? Where are we going? How important is this for the Southern market?
Yeah, I think really important, Diff. And, obviously no coincidence that Joseph Newgarden was a part of that announcement in Nashville of the new race today. He's certainly one of the series' biggest stars, 2 of the last 3 championships, again in the title hunt this year. And I think that the fact that they can leverage the fact that he is a hometown native, I think that IndyCar sometimes has struggled with positioning its American drivers and champions well. And to have this race be there next year and have Newgarden, again, be such a face of the series, I think all of those things complement each other really well. And I think it could be a really good opportunity to tell more of not just the American racing public, but the American sporting public in Nashville about Joseph Newgarden.
And Hinch, when you think about just going back to those victories of yours, pleasure of mine to call you victories too. St. Petersburg, your first victory, you won on the streets in Brazil. And then, of course, a really special one, winning on the streets of Long Beach. From where you sit as a driver, and now I guess you've got a different perspective as a commentator too, but from where you sit as a driver, what makes a good street course? Now, Tony Kottman, who's been involved with IndyCar for so long, he'll be involved in the design and the layout through the downtown streets of Nashville. What can we look for? What makes a good street course, in your opinion?
I mean, I think what makes a good street course is variety in corners. When you're building a street circuit, your hands are so tied on what you can do and the amount of area you have to work with. And so a lot of street courses that we have been to in the past, I hate to say a lot of these ones that didn't necessarily survive were a lot of stop and go 90-degree corners because you were just really inhibited by the landscape you were working with. Places like Toronto did well because they had some really fast sweeping corners. You had tight hairpins on top of the average, street circuit 90-degree corner. Long Beach, same way. You've got corners like the Fountain. You've got that beautiful curved straightaway, the section at the back through 9 and 10, the famous hairpin. It's that variety in corners, which if you can pull off at a street circuit, which is so much harder to do than obviously building a permanent road course from scratch, I think that really makes a fun racetrack for us. At the end of the day, though, it's about the event. It's about the fans. It's about the people that come out to those races, and the city's really getting behind them. The ones that have been successful have been events where the city's really embraced it. So from the driving side, if Tony Cottman's got the freedom and working around the Titan Stadium there, that might actually give us some cool opportunities and pieces to use. And I'm excited to see the layout because that's what's going to make it for me.
I think that point about the event and the fans, and looking to August 2021, hopefully the world will be in a better place and we'll be back somewhat more to normal and having functions and events, etc. But we've got some new next door neighbors here, 2 young professionals in their mid-30s. They don't know anything about motor racing whatsoever, but their respective careers and jobs had them in the Baltimore region many years ago. And they said one of their most favorite sporting events they've been to was the Baltimore IndyCar street race. So let's hope that we can achieve that same kind of fun event factor with the Nashville race. In more news this week, 4-time IndyCar champion Sebastian Bourdais is going to return to full-time competition for AJ Foyt Racing in 2021, but he will be at the Harvest Grand Prix. Nate, in your opinion, and you've interviewed Sebastian so many times, this is, I think, the cream always rises to the top, right? Good drivers will always be good drivers, and good drivers are in need, like Hinch. It was good to see Hinch driving again this year, maybe full-time next year. What does that mean for Bourdais and his career in IndyCar to have somebody of his stature back in the series?
Now, I think it's great for IndyCar, Diff, great for Sebastian Bourdais that he gets the full-time opportunity, but I think it's especially good for AJ Foyt Racing. And we heard Larry Foyt, the president of the team, talk at length yesterday about how impressed they were with Sebastian Bourdais when he tested with them in the preseason at Circuit of the Americas and then a private test at Sebring, how good he was at telling the engineers how they could improve their cars. They're a small team, and Sebastian Bourdais has shown that he really has the ability to lift up small teams before, like Dale Coyne Racing, where he went there and won some races. And I think that's certainly an expectation with Foyt, that he will be able to go there and perhaps take them up a little bit of an echelon from where they've been in recent years. And I think it's a great story, in that this was supposed to be a partial schedule for Bourdais with this team in 2020, but because when the pandemic hit, it kept pushing back his ability to get in that car. And it's great that not only now does he get a full season in 21, but that he gets the last 3 races as well in 2020 to make that transition. I think it's great all around for both driver and team.
Hinch, what does he have to do? And I'm just grabbing the updated standings. What does he have to do to pull AJ Foyt Racing up by the bootstraps? Charlie Kimball is 19th. By the way, he's hopeful of being back with AJ Foyt next year. I spoke with Charlie this morning. He said it's too early to tell. There's some positive signs. He'd love to be back. But Charlie, the team's only full-time driver, is 19th. Tony Kanaan, the legend, partial season, he's 22nd. Dalton Kellett, again, partial season, he's 26th. When you think of AJ Foyt Racing, those positions, they're not what that team and that organization and Supertex at the helm want. So what can Bourdais do for them?
I mean, I think he can just be Sebastian Bourdais. That's going to be such a huge addition to this team. And when you think about it, as Nate was saying, he was supposed to run, I think it was the first 4 races of this championship. And in a sense, that was almost kind of going to be a job interview for him. It was going to be an audition for potentially a full-time ride in 2021. He didn't get that opportunity. He got 2 days in the car at the open test at COTA, which we know because of weather and a couple factors, it was only really a couple hours. And the fact that the team was willing to commit to him, even before the Harvest GP, it shows that even in those few hours in the car, he showed what he was capable of, the engineering prowess that he brings, the experience he brings. I've worked with engineers in the past that have worked with Sebastian Bourdais, Craig Hampson, and he'll tell you he's one of the most technical drivers out there. He's one of the most technically intelligent drivers out there. He's probably one guy that you could give him a setup sheet and say, fill it out and hand it to your crew chief, and he'd probably get it closer than any other driver on the grid to actually having a competitive race car. So having a guy with that kind of knowledge and that kind of experience stepping into this program that has been struggling for a few years, it's just going to be huge. It's going to pay dividends. We saw that speed in the few hours of the Coda Open test. So, I chatted with Sebastian yesterday after the announcement, and, I said, hey, I'm super happy for him. Obviously the way things went down at the end of last year, I can relate. We both found ourselves in a similar situation. So we were kind of bonded a bit over that, but I was super happy to see him back. He said, yeah, I mean, it's going to be a challenge, but I told him there's nobody better suited for this challenge than you. He's put himself in challenging situations, and time and time again, he comes out on top. So I'm very excited for him and excited to see what he can do with that team.
And he is in his hometown of Le Mans, France right now for the 24 Hours of Le Mans this weekend, where he's hopefully going to stand on the podium like he has done before, maybe even a win in class. He won't be racing for overall honours. So we wish Sebastian Bourdais all well. Thanks, guys, for your time. Exciting times ahead. It just seems every week we go into, there's more good news for the NTT IndyCar Series. Bit of a break, but then the Harvest Grand Prix, a double header on the Indianapolis road course on the first weekend of October. We'll see you then. Thanks, fellas.
Hey Motorsports fans, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit subscribe before you go for all the latest news and highlights across motorsports.